Nice to be here, everyone. My name is Justin Wienckowski. I'm a senior software engineer at Chime. And this is going to be a turbo mode lightning talk. This talk is a compressed version of the training that we have started to offer to our Rails engineers to learn how to use AI coding tools. So by the end of this talk, you'll know everything that you need to get started with AI coding and take that knowledge back to your teams, hopefully, and help encourage adoption if this is a tool that you think will help you. So why are we doing this? We believe that AI coding agents are a new tool that can make our lives better. At its core, programming is about juggling a lot of detailed, specific knowledge. AI-assisted coding is like working with someone who has memorized the internet. This can be incredibly powerful, but of course, like any tool, it has strengths and weaknesses. Rails development plays to the strengths of AI. The Rails community has a great culture of sharing. We have good quality open source tools and code. We have lots of tutorials and documentation. And we have this strong culture around using common patterns. And all of these things are things that AI can help us leverage. AI is also great at automating the boring stuff. This can actually make our jobs more fun as programmers. So it's not just about productivity. It can actually be about our enjoyment and our satisfaction and our growth and learning also. Agents reduce the cost of writing code. This is their real superpower, as I hope you'll see. Reducing the cost of writing code changes how we work. It lets us focus more time and effort on the things that we can do better than computers, like decomposing tasks into small, safe steps, object-oriented design, innovating to solve domain-specific problems, in evaluating the trade-offs in different implementations, and reviewing code and improving code quality. So to get started with AI coding, the first thing you need to do is to select a tool. Don't spend too much time on this. Don't overthink it. This is the gold rush era of tools right now. There is a ton of them. They're evolving constantly. Keeping track of this stuff is a full-time job by itself, and it's probably not worth your time. Experience is going to be better than research. A day or two of experimenting with a tool will teach you everything you need to know. Now, tools are also improving quickly, so even a tool that wasn't very good a number of months ago might be reasonable today. Don't be afraid to experiment, and don't be afraid to repeat your evaluations in the future. This is a list of the AI coding tools that we currently use at Chime. Cursor is our most widely used tool, and so I'm going to quickly show you how to get set up and make Cursor a reasonable environment for Rails development. Let's get started. First, you got to download Cursor, sign up for an account. Now, Cursor is a fork of VS Code. Now, a lot of Rails developers are, rightly so, hesitant about using a VS Code environment for Ruby and Rails development, because for a long time, it was really awful. The general sentiment at Chime is that this is still not as good as Ruby and Rails-specific IDEs, but it's very serviceable now. You can actually be productive with it. So once you get installed, first you have to install extensions. You can open the user interface, you click here, and then you can search the marketplace for extensions. Our friends at Shopify have an excellent Ruby extension, which is actually an extension pack that bundles a number of extensions together along with some custom configuration. It is, we believe, the best way to get started, and it's super easy. You also might want to install some of these extensions. They can be helpful. One note is that you do not need a separate Rubocop extension, and in fact, installing multiple of them can create conflicts and odd behavior. The Ruby LSP extension actually integrates with Rubocop directly, so it's usually not necessary. So even though Cursor is much improved, sometimes it's going to need some troubleshooting. So if things aren't working right, if things seem weird, first, click here and open the bottom panel. Click the Output tab, and then use the selector to look at different log files. This is the first opportunity for troubleshooting and debugging. Now, some of these errors are going to, like this one that Ruby LSP is showing, don't necessarily affect the functionality, so you don't necessarily have to fix it. But if things are weird in the UI or things like code navigation aren't working, this is your first stop. Now remember that Ruby LSP is a separate external process. That means that if it encounters errors, it'll output logs into a separate directory in your project root, so also check here. Now, once all the extensions are working and your environment is reasonably stable, the next step is to customize your settings. VS Code and Cursor by extension has multiple levels of settings. The easiest way to access it is the searchable command palette. This allows you to open this, either you can open the JSON settings file directly, which is great. It has great autocomplete. It's really easy to use. Or there's a GUI interface also. One of the most common problems that people run into with Cursor and Ruby LSP is your version manager. So Ruby LSP will attempt to auto-detect your version manager and use it automatically, but if you have multiple installed, it might not guess correctly. So you can override it with this setting here. Another troubleshooting tip is to start Cursor from the command line within your Rails project. This will help it ensure that it loads the environment correctly and eliminates a lot of problems. Okay, so that's the Cursor specific part. Let's talk about now, let's talk about how to use Cursor's agent. Now, a lot of this is specific to Cursor, but some of it can be generalized. So to open Cursor's agent, you click here to open the right-hand panel. The agent has two main modes, ask and agent. Ask is just for discussion, investigation, searching, discussing ideas. You'll likely spend most of your time in agent mode. Now, agent mode is pretty eager about writing and editing code. But any code change that it makes will be highlighted in the editor, and you have to manually accept or reject each change. The agent's pretty smart, and it can also run tests, it can run external tools, and it will, by default, prompt you before doing anything like that. So it's a great way to get started. Another trick is that there's some slash commands available that allow you to quickly get to common functions. In Cursor, a lot of these are related to context. So context is primarily about directing the agent to the source code that it should work on and pay attention to. So the agent can read all of the code in your project, but this is how you get it to focus on the task at hand. You can add files and folders to the agent's context through this menu here. And you can also use the @ symbol to mention specific files in the prompt itself. You can also drag files from tabs or from the Explorer view into the prompt. So that's a basic introduction to Cursor. It's really pretty easy to use, and it's come a long way in the last few years. So now let's talk more generally about how you can actually use coding agents to get work done. This section applies to all coding agents, not just Cursor. Different agents have different strengths and weaknesses, but we're finding that a lot of their overall features and intelligence is converging pretty quickly. We're often seeing multiple updates and releases from these various different tools every week. Like any new programming tool, coding agents require us to build some new skills. One of those skills is prompt engineering. Now, prompt writing is not a science. It's more like magic. You have to create the right setting, invoke the right spirits, and find the right incantation. And you're not going to get it right the first time. You really want to iterate and learn as you go. As you learn how to effectively prompt the agent and get it to do what you want, you're building a spellbook. And this is not just in a general sense. When there's going to be a lot of tasks, just like most programming, where we do the same tasks over and over again. And you're going to find yourself repeating prompts. So you can actually build up composable and reusable prompts. And so this spellbook is a valuable new tool for us. Now, most agents support some kind of rules, which are essentially permanent prompts. Cursor's feature is called Rules for AI, and Claude Code supports will automatically read the claude.md file if it exists. So these features allow you to give your agent permanent instructions. And it's a great way to provide context and information, to provide your style guide to the agent. Because remember that agents are really good at understanding plain English. So this doesn't necessarily have to be specific instructions. It can be more general. Agent rules. So those are the basic tools to use an agent, but how can you use them effectively? So one thing that everybody's thinking about these days is coding workflows with agents. And this is a huge area of experimentation. But there are some ideas that you can use as landmarks to help you find a path and get started. One way to think about coding workflows is this spectrum of agent agency or autonomy or independence. How independently is the agent acting? Our friends at Thoughtbot have a great blog post that talks about this in terms of human-led programming versus agent-led programming. The simplest form is tab completion. Sometimes people knock on this or kind of skip over it, but I think it can actually be really valuable, and it can be a perfectly fine place to start. Especially if you're writing boilerplate code or glue code, this can actually save you a lot of keystrokes. Another option is pair programming. Agents are probably going to be the most convenient pair that most of us have an opportunity to work with. It's a great way to discuss design ideas, try out different implementations, and this is where you'll start to save a lot of time by having the agent write the code for you. The trade-off, of course, is that you have to review their work. So the pairing approach is great for things like scaffolding and glue code, repetitive and boring refactorings, or trying different design options, trying different implementation approaches. So when you're pairing, you're going to be having this continuous conversation, this back and forth with the agent. What if you want the agent to work more independently? So one option is to automate what you would do. So take a task, write a detailed plan, and let the agent execute it. You're automating your own workflow using the agent. Now, you can develop this workflow with the agent's help. You don't have to do it all on your own, but the important part is that your judgment is what's going into structuring this task. So when you're doing this, the more independence that you give the agent, you do have to think about guardrails, checkpoints. How do you make sure that you are supervising the agent's work? And that's one thing that prompt spellbook will help you build up. Agents are starting to incorporate planning features, but I still like to write my plan down in files. This approach is adapted from one of Harper Reed's blog posts. You can develop a plan in a file, create a to-do list so that the agent can track its own progress. And this is very useful because sometimes agents get stuck in loops, or sometimes agents, when they start to compact the context window, begin to generate odd results. And you basically have to go back to the Windows 95 era and reboot. So these files give you some state so that the agent can pick up where it left off. There's another benefit to this too, which is that by storing your thought process in these files, you can begin to start to recognize the common pieces and identify prompts that are reusable or that could be generalized. Some people using Claude Code find that fewer files or even a single file works better. So this is also an area to experiment on. A fourth approach gives the agent maximum independence, and you can even have agents work on multiple tasks in the background now. So this is where you treat the agent like a separate programmer, where you just assign it a task, and it goes off, and it works, and it comes back with maybe a completed branch or even a pull request. And it only is going to bug you if it thinks it's stuck, or if you notice that it's stuck. So this is an exciting idea, but there's a lot of details that go into making it work effectively. And this is one of the areas that's really in rapid development right now. This is best for things where you have a very specific scope, a clear completion criteria. And remember that agents are best at essentially generating the code that is the average of the entire internet. So this is best for simple problems with clear solutions. This mode is what Kent Beck refers to as genie mode, because it'll do its best to fulfill your wish. It often does so imperfectly until you learn to express your wish in just the right way. Now, even though we've gone through these kind of in an order, these are not steps on a path. These are options that you can pick for the task at hand. So you might choose the pairing approach for designing explorations, scaffolding and simple things, double-checking your test or writing tests, or writing an implementation based on a test. Pairing mode is also great for learning. Using a detailed plan is good for larger, more complex tasks where the human element is important, where you're innovating solutions to unique or domain-specific problems, and where you need to bring your knowledge to bear. And the coding genie can be great for automating relatively simple tasks, small to medium complexity, that follow standard patterns and have standard solutions. And as always, we're at the very beginning of this experiment. And I hope that this will be an exciting way to to explore different ways of working and to make programming fun in new ways. So pick a tool, almost any tool. Build your prompt spellbook, start with pairing, get to know your agent, automate the boring stuff, make your life easier, and experiment with workflows. There's some resources here. Don't worry about copying these down. We'll post these slides in the Slack channel. And that is my lightning talk on AI coding.
All right, thanks everyone. My name is Jake Gribschaw. I've been a Chime engineer now for about 6 years and interested in machine learning and AI for around 8. Today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the valuable lessons I've learned when coding up Beacon, which is Chime's AI-powered code review bot. Just before we jump in, though, I'd like to quickly share a little bit of my philosophy around integrating AI into our software development lifecycle. So I believe that, AI is truly transformative for us. It's an enhancing power, and embracing AI tooling means actively cultivating a relationship between us and it, leveraging AI's efficiency, knowledge, and scalability without letting it supplant human insight, creativity, and wisdom. When AI fully automates our tasks, it erodes our skills, dulling our lives and ultimately reducing the quality of our work. We don't merely want to press run when prompted. Instead, we want to thoughtfully integrate AI into our workflow, using it to amplify our capabilities and freeing ourselves to tackle the complex challenges that truly require human knowledge and judgment, like when to use includes versus joins in the active record, and that lovely N+1 that we talked about earlier. So, why did we build Beacon in the first place? Today, code is being written faster than ever, meaning maintainers are facing pressure to review, provide feedback, and decision on incoming requests. With Beacon, we saw an opportunity to shift some of that burden off of maintainers by prompting developers to clearly articulate their intentions and educate them on common pitfalls. Asking if they have things like consider different approaches and random tools. Developers can iterate commonly, independently, and present more polished and robust products to these maintainers. We like to think of it as a less deterministic Rubicop. Its suggestions are able to go beyond finding just issues, but also look for style, existing patterns in our code base. And like Rubicop, sometimes the suggestions aren't appropriate for the situation. It gives our developers confidence that they're on the right track, though, and informs them when they're using outdated practices. In the end, we're able to build a Chimified version of our review bot that our engineers felt outperformed commercial applications. But I'm here to talk mostly about the key lessons we learned in creating an AI agent. So let's take a little bit step back, right? I'd like to have you imagine for a moment a pink elephant. No? Hopefully you started picturing some sort of a brightly colored pachyderm, but perhaps other ideas started popping up. Things like childhood memories, Dumbo from Disney, or a joke. Perhaps even something completely unrelated, like Baldur's Gate. Why does this happen? Well, it's because our brains, much like LLMs, encode information in a rich, multi-dimensional space. Right? We kind of think about a graph or a cone in this dimensional space when we add in prompting. So mentioning an idea subtly activates many related ideas, shaping our perceptions, thoughts, and ultimately our actions. Similarly, we can guide an LLM by creating these contextual shortcuts. For instance, if you identify that an LLM was likely trained on a certain common resource, you can reference that concept in that resource by including recognizable fingerprints, like specific URLs or key phrases in your prompt. By embedding these identifiers into your prompts, you've effectively shaped the way that the LLM will say, thinks about it subconsciously, right? Nudging it towards desired outputs without actually excessively increasing the prompt complexity. This helps with a bit of complication that we often run into, which is the more context isn't always better. Early on in building Beacon, we assumed providing lots of background information would lead to richer insights, but we quickly learned that wasn't really true. In fact, huge prompt instructions or overly broad context often dilutes the clarity of a request, expanding the potential outcomes into a confusing array of possibilities. The more precise your request, the more precise and actionable the responses will be. So one of the more valuable lessons we learned was to keep the scope of each interaction, aka an LLM call, very narrow and clear. Critical checks like security reviews, database changes, often require their own dedicated request to produce actionable feedback. By thinking multidimensionally and keeping our context clean, we're able to successfully steer the LLM and give great results on things it's seen before. But this kind of goes out the window when you start dealing with newer and more niche technologies, right? Now, I know you said, Jake, just before you said, more context doesn't get better results. But did you see that little asterisk right there? Yeah. Well, it turns out we ran into a touch of trouble with that. Our colleague Noel was building a service with Rails 8 earlier this year, which had just been released. And when the AI reviewed his code, it repeatedly flagged valid changes as incorrect because the LLM was trained on Rails 7. Noel was unsurprised that the AI was lackluster, and I was crushed. But this isn't just a Rails issue. It's a universal challenge with LLMs. When dealing with cutting-edge technology, they just haven't been trained on it. And that's where we have to help them out figure what's happening. So here we realize we need another tool from our AI tool belt, everyone's favorite RAG. We specifically, a RAG loaded up with correct documentation, change logs, things like that, that an LLM agent can search through in order to augment its own knowledge base. So we're able to provide this authoritative source to our LLMs on new and more niche technologies, increasing its knowledge on state-of-the-art systems. So time and time again, when I've been working in the AI space, I hear my colleagues say things like, Jake, I want to build a RAG and load Slack into it, or I need to fine-tune an LLM agent to help me refactor all of my Rails controllers. In our example, creating a RAG or even fine-tuning a foundation model kind of makes sense, where we need to bring in our state-of-the-art technology. But consider your own case. Is it really worth the effort? Are you working on something so cutting edge that you can't use existing knowledge? So we've all been there. The hype is real, and so are the capabilities. Focusing first on a specific tool or technique can easily lock you into an overcomplicated solution. If your real goal is to simply analyze how often you fix someone's slow Rails performance issues by swapping over from joins to includes, setting up an entire RAG system just to ingest and analyze Git data is not only overkill, but the wrong approach. Simply building using built-in search API will probably get your job done and faster. AI is great at finding and applying patterns to problem spaces, condensing information, and again, augmenting you by providing different perspectives, not the final one. So what does it mean when your project turns out that, hey, a bare foundation model with some extra context and a good prompt is all you really need? Well, it's going to happen. It seems like there's a new breakthrough in AI every few weeks. You start on a project, and then someone else posts the links about something similar launching. It's tempting to keep pivoting away and thinking someone else has gotten there first, but our OG Rubyists know that when something is fun and easy to work on, there's lots of innovation around it. Your project's value doesn't vanish just because another cool idea has taken it already. You're learning. You're driving us forward. Stick with it, explore. The space is very, very fun. And as Justin mentioned, it's very close to magic to work in. AI moves fast, yes, but sustainable progress comes from consistent effort, iteration, and your dedication to your core idea. Finish what you start, learn from the journey, and only then adopt and integrate new technologies as they truly benefit your solution. So when you do adopt a new technology, try your best to write your own interfaces for it. The world of AI, as we've mentioned, is moving so fast and has so many various tools with very, very different options. It can be easily to over-integrate these into your core solution and then become dependent on them. This gives you FOMO, and when new tools comes out, increases your maintenance costs and gets you pulled around when new tools come out. So finally, when we're testing with LLMs, it can be really, really challenging to do. So even a single changed word in a prompt, the staff will say, can significantly impact the results. On our own code base, I changed that exact word set, and suddenly the comments we started getting back were a lot more grumpy. Clearly understand the effects of changes, whether you're adding more context, splitting the prompts into multiple steps, or simply switching out the underlying model. You need the ability to replay and compare past inputs to your new results. So it's crucial to think carefully about data storage strategies from the start and decide not just how to store data, but what's to store as well. Tools like Git and Slack easily capture inputs and outputs, but miss oftentimes the thinking stages in between. So capturing these invaluable assets or these invaluable steps will provide insights into diagnosing issues and evaluating changes later on. So wrapping us up here, a couple core lessons I'd love for you to take away. First, remember that AI thinks multidimensionally. Gently guide it with familiar references that it knows. Keep your prompts precise. Clarity and unambiguous statements are critical. Bridge knowledge gaps with tools like RAG. Don't chase every new trend. Focus on steady, sustainable progress, even if someone else is working on it too. Avoid vendor lock-in and keep as much of your data as possible. By applying these lessons to leverage AI to enhance our workflows, it'll empower our teams and deliver truly impactful results. Thank you.